It's been more than 4 years since allegations of fraud and underhand dealings were made in the AMERI power agreement. The 250 megawatt power plant was procured in 2016 to augment Ghana's electricity generation at the height of the energy crisis under the John Mahama administration. Amid allegations that it was overpriced by $150 million, the Akufo-Addo administration has pledged to investigate it. Though the agreement was eventually reviewed, government is yet to say what crimes were committed and those who committed them. There's more in the following report for Total Recall. The AMERI Power Agreement was one of those deals the New Patriotic Party, then in opposition, said was tainted with corruption. The agreement was structured such that AMERI would be paid for the plant from the tariffs paid by consumers of the electricity it generates over a period of 5 years. Dr. Bawumia, who was then running mate to candidate Akufo-Addo, argued why the contract at $510 million was overpriced.
The issue of the AMERI power deal is one episode of issues bordering on corruption and the failure to ensure value for money for the people of Ghana. In this deal, Ghana is basically purchasing 10 power gas plants for $510 million, even though the same plants can be acquired from GE, from the market, for $220 million.
On assumption of power in 2017, President Akufo-Addo, in his first State of the Nation address, announced a review of all power purchase agreements, including the AMERI deal.
Government is conducting a review of all the power agreements entered into by the previous government in order to prioritize, renegotiate, defer or cancel outright if necessary in the national interest.
A committee chaired by Philip Addison, which looked at the deal and traveled to the United Arab Emirates, concluded in 2017 that it should be renegotiated because it was overpriced by about $150 million. The police in July of 2017 visited the homes of some officials believed to have knowledge of the AMERI agreement in search of documents relating to the deal.
I found about 6 people with a warrant stating that they were searching for laptops and phone because I was suspected of causing financial loss to the nation with regards to the AMERI project, and I was completely taken aback because as a technocrat that I've served this country, I've now distinguished since President Kufuor's era. I thought I didn't deserve this because I only implement. I don't make decisions. I don't decide who goes where. The equipment is acquired and I installed, and I do it day and night, putting myself at risk to get it done.
The Director of Public Affairs of the Ghana Police Service at the time, David Aklu, explained the CID officers had visited on a court order to look for evidence to find out if someone was culpable.
What we did was to execute a warrant or a court order to search his premises to look for evidence in relation to an issue that the police wants to find out whether somebody is culpable or not.
The renegotiated AMERI deal by then Energy Minister Boakye Jackson extended the duration of the agreement to 15 years from 5 and reduced the cost of power from 14.6 cents to 11.7 cents per kilowatt hour. This was, however, condemned by many as worse than the original agreement and was eventually scrapped and the minister relieved of his post. Even though no reason was given for the minister's dismissal, many linked it to the revision of the AMERI deal. It's been 5 years since Ghana procured the AMERI plant, which also means that it is time for ownership to revert to the country. Government has already indicated the plant will be relocated to Kumasi to resolve the power supply challenges being experienced in that part of the country.
The Ministry of Energy has taken a decision. As we analyzed, we saw that it is best if we could get a generator around Kumasi. So the ministry has taken a decision that the AMERI power plant should be moved to Kumasi. So efforts are being put in place to ensure that gas infrastructure is sent to Kumasi to feed the AMERI power plant once that movement government is done. When this is completed, our system will become even more resilient.
Joint users learning, government has also initiated plans to take over ownership of the plant. As far as the investigations into criminality by the police CID are concerned, no prosecutions of the former ministers and officials whose homes were searched have been initiated. It is, however, not clear if government would ever make public the report on the investigations. Well, former Power Minister Dr. Kwabena Donkor says government's failure to prove allegations of wrongdoing in the procurement of the AMERI power plant affirms his position that the deal was above board. The minister, under whose watch the emergency power plants were acquired in 2016 for $510 million, was the subject of investigations by the police CID, along with two others, over claims the generators were overpriced. In an interview with the former Power Minister, I asked him if he was ever indicted by the police CID after its investigations in 2017.
Officially, no. I've followed up, and to the best of my knowledge, they didn't find anything incriminating. There was absolutely no criminality. All the decisions were above board.
But do you think you would have done things better if you had been given the chance to redo this?
Well, the only other thing I want to do differently is that there should have been a little bit more of education as to what build, own, operate, and transfer really entails. Because that was the first time we were going outside the normal route of purely independent IPP, and then we just pay for the energy. But in AMERI, we are not just going to pay for energy, but we are also going to own the plant. And therefore, it's slightly bit more complicated than the regular IPP.
Wouldn't it have been better if we went to buy the generators rather than go through all these third parties?
Well, if you have the money, it will always be better to go and buy. If you have the money to buy. Did we have the resources at the time? No. And if you don't have the resources, rather than just contracting the service, if there is an arrangement by which you pay a little more, but get to own the facility, get to own the plant, I believe owning the plant is always a better deal. Fortunately, it is a modular plant, and that gives it some flexibility, and I believe we are about to exercise that flexibility.
So as it is now, the plant is going to be relocated to Kumasi. What do you make of that idea?
Well, it just reaffirms what we had always known from the beginning, that if the plant is yours and the plant is modular, you can move it to meet national demand when such peculiar demand stands up. Presently, there's the need to inject generation into the Kumasi area in order to stabilize the grid. And AMERI has come in very useful. And I fully support moving some of the units to Kumasi. My only addition is that 3 of the units, there are 10 units, generating 25 megawatts each. 3 of the units can be used in Abuaze in the T3 plant. Remember the plant President Kufuor contracted. The plant has never worked because the units got burnt out. There was a major problem with the unit, so it's never worked. But a consultant report I have seen indicates that 3 of the units will perfectly fit into the plant. And because that plant has a heat recovery unit, therefore the heat recovery unit will generate some extra power. If you add that extra power to what the 3 will generate, you end up generating more power using less fuel, and therefore ending up being cheaper per megawatt.
There are others too who are suggesting that we leave the AMERI plant, the units, in the Abuaze enclave because they would be needed for the combined cycle rather than sending them all the way to Kumasi. And they also say that the problem with Kumasi is not so much about the generation, but it's about the integrity of the transmission lines from the south going towards Kumasi. And if that is fixed, we really don't need to have the AMERI plant being moved there, because it's being moved at a cost.
If we was generating, then the system in Kumasi and the northern part will be stabilized. In the absence of that, and we cannot guarantee continuous availability of good water in the dam. And so in the interim, and that is one of the strengths of the AMERI plant, in that it is modular. In the interim, for the next 2-3 years, we can take the plant to Kumasi, stabilize the northern part, build up the reservoir in Bui over time, and then if it becomes necessary, we can then move it back. The other thing is that we will also have the option of turning the units into combined cycle at a later time, even in Kumasi, if that is what we desire. All I need to say, or I want to say, is that we should not be short-termish in our projections and our calculations, and especially in our analysis. As a people, we tend to look at power in electoral cycles, and that has not been useful. We need to go beyond the 4-year electoral cycle and look at a medium term of 5 to 8 years. And that will be a better basis for analysis.